As they say in the country, the boy was cut from good stock.
There was Jim Hunter, the kid from Hertford, North Carolina, and then there was Catfish, who was all about winning and throwing strikes.
Got him.
He was a master at manipulating the zone.
This guy could locate his fastball, slider, changeup.
Everybody believed in Catfish Hunter in New York, and he came there and did exactly what everybody expected he would do, be the best pitcher in baseball.
By the end of the 1974 season, Jim Catfish Hunter had amassed quite a resume with the Oakland A's. 4 straight 20-win seasons, 3 World Series titles, and oh yes, a Cy Young Award. Hi, I'm John Sterling for the Yes Network, and this is Yankeeography. You would have thought, with those kind of numbers, that Oakland would have locked in its franchise pitcher for life. But suddenly there was an opening. And the result was a high-stakes fishing trip with Catfish as the prize catch.
You have the best pitcher in baseball who's just won the Cy Young Award on the open market.
I don't think Cat really wanted to leave, but I don't think he had a choice, in all honesty. And that's the way it went down.
In his contract, there was a $50,000 deferred payment for an insurance annuity, and Mr. Finley had consistently refused to defer that $50,000 until the time that Jimmy said, okay, enough's enough. He's not going to pay me this money, so I'm going to file a grievance.
That was how his contract was written, that he was supposed to have that money deferred, and when Mr. Finley didn't do it, that's when Jimmy decided to go to arbitration.
And following a 2-to-1 vote by the arbitration board, Hunter was declared a free agent.
The breach of contract ruling has made Hunter the envy of all players. He can negotiate with any team he likes and demand anything he thinks they'll pay him.
Suddenly, GMs and owners everywhere developed a craving for Catfish.
And for 3 weeks in December of 1974, Ahoskie, North Carolina was the center of the baseball universe.
They were there to dangle bait before Catfish Hunter's lawyers, for they all knew this was the kind of pitcher that could turn a team around.
20 of the 24 Major League teams have already talked to Hunter or plan to talk to him. He says it may be a week or more before he decides.
While the bidding was going on and we were reading newspaper accounts of what different teams were offering, I did walk into Gabe Paul's office one day and said, could this actually reach $1 million? Gabe said, damn right it could.
And it did.
When I was negotiating, I couldn't believe some of the figures that was coming out. You know, and I kept looking at it. I said, these guys are crazy. I said, but as long as they keep offering the money, I'm going to keep, come on, bring some more.
The contenders were soon whittled down to 2 teams, with New York, of course, one of them.
Now, they come up with the money really, really late. I mean, it is New Year's Eve, December 1974, and the Padres essentially think they've got him.
I told my wife when I left home that morning to go to my lawyer's office, I said, I'm going to sign with somebody today. I'm getting tired of going over there talking every day. And I called about 11 o'clock that morning. I said, I made up my mind I'm going to sign with the team.
And he told me the 2 teams, who it was between. But he said, I'm not sure.
Well, no one knew Catfish better than Helen, and she never doubted what he'd do.
She said, when you left home this morning, I knew it was going to be the Yankees, just the way you acted.
I just had the feeling, because I knew they were on the East Coast, and he liked the Yankees, and it was near home also.
The contract became official at a press conference in New York.
After the press conference was over, I asked which was the pen that he used to sign, and Gabe picked up like a 19-cent pen, and I said, can I give that to the Hall of Fame? He said, be my guest.
Hunter's contract sent shockwaves throughout the league. For though Ken Harrelson was technically the first free agent in 1967, Catfish created a watershed moment with the most lucrative contract to date, paving the way for future fortunes.
By getting that kind of salary, it showed that baseball teams could afford to pay that kind of money.
From that point on, it changed the face of baseball. And players, earned free agency, and they could start going to the teams who would pay the most for them.
The Yankees had won the Catfish sweepstakes. Whether or not this small-town boy could make it in the big city remained to be seen. Next on Yankeeography.
When they offered him $75,000, I mean, who would sing $75,000? We're lucky to have $1.
Yankee. The story of Catfish, the Yankees legend, begins far, far away. James Augustus Hunter was born April 8, 1946, in the quiet southern town of Hertford.
It's a small farming community, about 2,200 people in the northeast corner of North Carolina. It's farming. His dad was a farmer, avid hunter, an uncomplicated man who taught all the Hunter boys what it meant to work.
My dad was a farmer, so we all worked. Every chance we got, we played ball, though.
Jimmy, as he was known, built natural strength in his arms and legs working that farm. But when the chores were done, baseball ruled the roost.
I got 4 older brothers, and I threw batting practices then when I was younger. If I didn't throw strikes, I didn't get to play. So I had to throw strikes.
That's right. He had to throw strikes. All of us had good control.
Rainy days, we go inside the barn and draw a X up on the back of the barn and get corn cobs or one-act baseballs and working on control.
Jimmy's development was impressive, and he showed an obvious talent to pitch as early as middle school. When he helped his high school win the state title in '63, scouts began to turn up. One was Clyde Klutz.
Clyde showed up with this sort of uncomplicated, country, cool to him, a former major league catcher who believed in Jimmy more so than any other scout.
But while Jimmy was forging a baseball friendship with Clyde, still another relationship was unfolding off the field.
We went on our first date with the Sadie Hawkins dance. It was a double date.
She asked him, and I said, I'll pick you up, and we'll go pick up Helen to my date. So off we went. We had a big time, and then they were sweethearts from then on.
With his future wife in hand and the eyes of scouts upon him, life for Jimmy seemed perfect. But that would quickly change.
Jimmy had an accident in Thanksgiving Day, 1963. He was out in the woods hunting with one of his brothers, and the shotgun accidentally went off.
My gun went off and shot him in his right little toe. And I said, Jimmy, what happened? He said, you shot my damn toe off.
He was a little bit leery with the scouts not wanting to come see him, after that happened.
The day he got shot, we were scared that he'd never be able to play again.
All Jimmy did was start his '64 high school season with 2 no-hitters, the second a perfect game. A's owner Charlie Finley took notice and paid a visit to Hertford.
He came in like the force of nature that he was and had a number in mind, and he threw $75,000 on the table.
When they offered him $75,000, I mean, who would sing $75,000? We're lucky to have $1 at the time.
Jimmy's first reaction was, well, there's a couple other teams I really do need to talk to. And Mr. Finley said, well, if I leave today, that money goes with me. You either sign this for $75,000 or I leave town. And Jimmy looked at his dad, Abbott, and said, we'll take the $75,000.
After signing, Jimmy's first stop was the Mayo Clinic to repair his damaged foot. Then came a conversation with Finley that gave Jimmy Hunter the chance to make a name for himself.
Mr. Finley said, do you have a nickname? I said, no. He says, well, what do you like to do? I said, hunt and fish. He said, well, when you were 6 years old, you ran away from home went fishing. About 4 o'clock in the afternoon, your mom and dad been looking for you all day. They found you. You caught 2 catfish, was bringing in the 3rd one. Says, now repeat it to me. That's what your nickname is from now on.
Just like that, the legend of Catfish was born. But by any name, he was something.
I think we expected to see somebody that was really special, and Catfish was really special.
Catfish never played in the minors and went 8-8 in his first year with a struggling Kansas City team. But with an eccentric owner like Finley, things were never dull.
To play on Finley's teams in the 60s, it was like being part of the Barnum and Bailey circus. It was a tent show.
I can remember one year he had a zoo out in back of the outfield fence.
And a mule that traveled with us on the road. He stayed in the best hotels and traveled better than the ball players did.
Missouri is famous for its mules. It's called mule country. So the governor, at that time was Governor Hearns, and he said to me, if you will adopt a mule as team mascot, I'll pay for it. I said, you got a deal. I named him Charlie O.
But Finley surprised everyone in 1968 when he moved Charlie O and the A's to Oakland, where the nucleus of talent Finley had acquired to complement Catfish was just about to blossom. In 1968, Catfish and the A's headed west, looking to find gold and green in California.
Kansas City at that point in time had sort of a minor league legacy, so I think coming out to Oakland, it was sort of a new beginning.
Opening day drew both stars and fans, but the curiosity soon wore off.
You drew 50,000 on opening day and only 5,000 the second night.
You had the Giants in San Francisco, who were the beloved, brothers by the bay, and then you had Oakland, which was a mausoleum. It was huge, it was concrete, it was cold, but it was a great pitcher's park.
Just how great Catfish discovered on May 8th, 1968, when this country boy, far from his roots, made a name for himself in the big city. And it all began when Catfish was kicked out of pregame batting practice.
I was in the cage, and Bob Kennedy said, you know, hitters, get out of there. So let the hitters get in there. That kind of made me mad, so I just walked out of the cage, threw the bat in the dugout, and walked on up in the clubhouse.
Everyone should be so angry before they pitch, for Catfish took his fury out on Minnesota, pitching the first regular season perfect game in the American League since 1922. And this was no ordinary team.
Minnesota was a force at that time. They had a power-laden club. Harmon Killebrew, Bobby Allison, Rock Carew were all players in that game. And so the feat that night was a lot more special, recognizing the quality of the team.
As we got into the 6th, 7th inning, and he was doing this perfect game thing, and a big hush falls over the crowd every pitch that's made.
Jim Hunter, great fastball leading there. Strike three, the boy has pitched a no-hitter. He pitched a perfect ball game and goes into the record books tonight.
After the ball game, Bob Kennedy walked up to me and says, nice pitching. I said, no. How about my hitting? Because I went 3 for 4, drove in 3 runs, and scored the 4th run. And he says, well, you're a pretty good hitter.
At the tender age of 22, Catfish had emerged as a leader on a team chock full of budding stars. And as these A's hit their West Coast stride, they also developed a groundbreaking style, one that set them apart from the rest.
We were a young group of long-haired, afro-wearing, hippie-looking guys at that time.
Reggie came to spring training, and he had a mustache, and they told him to shave it off, and he wouldn't do it. 2 or 3 of us pitchers said, well, heck, if Reggie can grow one, we will too. Mr. Finley came in, and he says, hey, that looks great. Why don't we get the whole team to do it?
He offered the guys on the club $300 if they would grow a mustache.
Almost everybody in the team grew a mustache, and a lot of us have never shaved them off.
That was the signature shot of that team. When you saw the A's, it was like something out of the Village People.
And no one was cooler than Catfish. With 21 wins in 72, he led the A's to their first of 3 consecutive pennants. And it was off to Cincinnati. The A's had surprised the favorite Big Red Machine in the series' first game. Now in Game 2, they sent their ace to the mound.
Catfish certainly was the guy that walked out there and you felt like, okay, we're going to win today. Catfish is pitching.
And we're looking at one of the American League's premier pitchers today.
Very underrated nationally. A 20-game winner the last 2 years. He really battles you, Catfish Hunter.
He was the surgeon. He'd carve you up a little bit. You'd throw a little ball out here, and strike one, and you'd say, well, he's going to go out there again, and you'd start to lean. He'd throw it a little further out, and you'd miss it. And now you say he's going to stay out there, and Stumpy coming here.
Goes Morgan as Hunter gets his first strikeout. I think today they didn't think I had that good a fastball. And once in a while I throw it by him. When that happens, you've got a good chance to win.
And he did win Game 2, 1 out shy of a complete game. He also won Game 7, having come on in relief to give Oakland its first World Series title.
After we beat them, the newspapers have said that the long-haired mustache gang was just lucky. Cincinnati was better. We didn't care what you said, we won.
The A's train kept on rolling in '73 as Catfish won 21 games for the third straight year. Oakland was back in the World Series, this time against the Mets, and they knew their best chance to beat Tom Seaver was to summon Catfish.
He was the heart and soul of the Oakland A's, no questions about it. I mean, because of his willingness, first of all, to pitch the big game and his capacity to win those games.
Little dribbler, third base side. Hunter will play it in time.
His reputation of being a control pitcher was such that I would sit up on the outside corner of the plate and just gradually move out farther and farther and farther. I would see how far I could go with the umpire. But they knew that he was going to be around the plate, and I would sit up out there, and it was just a thing of beauty.
In there for a call, strike three. Strikeout number 5 for Catfish Hunter.
It went 7 games, but the A's once again prevailed for their second straight title. Then in 1974, Catfish had his 4th straight season with more than 20 wins and was finally recognized with the Cy Young Award.
He comes out of the '74 season 25-12. He's got 23 complete games. He's got a 2.49 earned run average, and he wins the Cy Young. He is clearly the best pitcher in baseball at that point in time.
So what would Catfish do for an encore in the A's quest for a World Series three-peat? It didn't take long to find out, for when Raleigh Fingers struggled to shut the Dodgers down in Game 1, the A's called upon their big game hunter.
Alvin Dark coming out, looking to the bullpen, and he's going to bring his ace on, Jim Hunter.
As teammates, we were probably more shocked than he was. But he said, I'm ready, let's go.
He's brought in to face Joe Ferguson. Ferguson is a dead fastball hitter, and Jimmy's out on the mound. He's warmed up, and he goes, I'd like to throw some curveballs, but I don't have a curveball today, so I'm throwing the fastball.
9th inning, 3-2 Oakland. And his record-breaking crowd roaring for Joe Ferguson. Got him, and that'll do it.
Following his first save of the year, Catfish returned to the rotation for Game 3 in Oakland, which he won, spurring the A's to an incredible 3rd straight title. What no one knew at the time was that it would be his last victory as a member of the Oakland A's. Next on Yankeeography.
Catfish Hunter comes to New York with this tremendous contract, and he goes 0-3 in his first 4 starts.
George Steinbrenner gave Yankees fans cause to celebrate New Year's Eve in 1974. Well, that's when he reeled in a Cy Young Award winner in Catfish. Those who were hoping that George was serious were now convinced.
When he spent the money for Catfish Hunter, outbid 20-some-odd other teams who had bid millions of dollars for Catfish Hunter, you knew the worm had turned.
Catfish took the bait. Now he had to play a role.
What he did when he came in for that team is he was the building block that I needed at that time, the foundation for the championships.
Psychologically, his presence showed the Yankees are serious about winning.
And Hunter's new teammates immediately embraced him.
When he came to the clubhouse in Yankee Stadium, I mean, everybody took him in. We knew we were going to have a leader, and we knew we were going to have a great team then.
thought it was great. I thought we were, we needed pitching. We were playing in Shea Stadium, which is a bigger ballpark than Yankee Stadium was. We were getting the best pitcher in the league at that time.
But Catfish brought more to the team than just talent.
He came over with a winning posture, which our club needed at the time. He became a leader in our clubhouse, a leader on the pitching staff.
And a respected mentor for the pitching staff.
Catfish knew how to win, and he brought that with him to the club.
That and some much-needed fire.
There was no fear on the part of Catfish to call somebody out. The Yankees were a team in need of leadership. Not vocal leadership as much as on the field, watch me, this is what it takes to win games.
But once the season began, the man counted on to lead was having troubles of his own.
And Catfish Hunter comes to New York with this tremendous contract, with this aura about him as leading the A's, and he goes 0-3 in his first 4 starts.
Right at first, I think I lost 3 or 4 games in a row, and they were wondering what was wrong with me.
Jimmy wasn't winning games right at the beginning, so they were ready to throw him back in the pond, I guess.
And we, members of the press, having no patience for anybody, say the guy is a bum, and why did the Yankees sign him?
I was thinking that I had to win every game I pitched after I signed that contract.
But Catfish knew a little something about pressure, and it was just a matter of time before he'd right the ship.
You're just human, and you're not going to always win every game and do well every time. And so it was a little bit hard on him at the beginning, but then he finally came through for him and did well.
And of course, Catfish Hunter immediately settles down, wins the 5th start, goes on, wins 20 games for the Yankees that year.
Catfish recovered so fast, he was selected to pitch in the All-Star game, where he threw 2 scoreless innings.
Sinski is out on strike.
All told, Catfish won 23 games, the most by a Yankees pitcher since Whitey Ford in '63.
Pitching 30 complete games the first year we had him. It's unbelievable what Catfish was accomplishing.
Catfish led the league in victories, complete games, and innings pitched. An astounding body of work.
I'd love to pitch every inning that I could. And when I came over to the Yankees the first year, they did that.
With an ace in hand and a new manager in Billy Martin, the Yankees were on the cusp of greatness. The Yankees returned to a renovated stadium in 1976, and the makeover had done wonders to restore its luster. But there was no such quick fix for an arm-weary pitcher.
You couldn't hide it. He was getting hit hard, and Catfish never got hit hard. You know, his arm went dead from the years that he had in 1975. I think he had 30-some complete games that year, and that's what killed Catfish.
His teammates couldn't help but notice his pain. And when he actually missed a start, they knew something was very wrong.
Billy told me that Cat's arm didn't feel too good. It would have almost had to have been broken for him to not to be able to throw. So you know there was something there for him to say that I'll have to miss my start.
Still, Catfish persevered, often pitching through the pain.
He just liked to pitch. Whenever they told him to go out to pitch, he went to pitch and tried to do his best, you know, that he could.
Catfish somehow won 17 games in '76, and with league MVP Thurman Munson helped the Yankees win their division. In the process, Catfish gained enormous respect.
During the '76 season, his arm was hurting. I mean, he had pain, you could tell, but his attitude and his determination took us to that point.
For Chambliss and the Yankees, that situation was the League Championship Series, which Chambliss ended in dramatic fashion.
Chris Chambliss has won the American League pennant for the New York Yankees.
But Cincinnati's Big Red Machine swept the Yankees in the World Series, and the boss set out to lift the team to the next level. His solution was Reggie Jackson, a gamble George took in part because of Hunter's success.
I don't think there's any question the signing of Catfish and how well he pitched and how he earned his money, which I think George Steinbrenner, more than anything, is willing to pay it, but he likes to see it earned. When George saw that, I think he saw the wisdom of signing people like Reggie Jackson.
Although Reggie's bat inspired awe, his mere presence drew controversy. The tabloids now focused on Reggie, not on Hunter's pitching woes. But the pain was getting worse, and Catfish was getting bombed.
He went out to pitch a game. I don't think he lasted an inning in Boston that day. And they hit 3 or 4 home runs. The first 5-6 guys hit 3 or 4 home runs.
He didn't say much about it. I mean, he wouldn't have said much about it. He was really in a tremendous amount of pain.
He went from almost overhand to 3/4 angle, and then it would drop a little bit because he didn't want to put the arm through that particular range of motion as he was pitching.
In his third year with the Yankees, Catfish won just 9 games. Still, the team once again reached the World Series, where Catfish pitched Game 2, his first start in a month. And though he never made it through the third inning, his courage was an inspiration as the Yankees won it all.
We went on. We won our first World Series after, many years.
In the end, Reggie provided the muscle with 3 home runs in the deciding game. But Catfish was the heart.
He was the foundation. He taught us how to win. He made better pitchers out of everybody.
That moment that you win, it doesn't make a difference what happened to anybody before. Regardless of whether he pitched in it or not, just having him around was instrumental in the success that we all shared.
Next on Yankeeography.
I had a great year, but he was probably the reason why we actually won, not me.
The joy of 1977 met reality in the spring of '78. For after reporting to camp, Catfish learned he had diabetes. He vowed not to let it disrupt his normal routine.
Catfish always went about his business, never said a word about it, and dealt with it. You know, he just knew it was going to be a way of life for him, so he just knew he had to educate himself and learn as much as he could about the disease and just continue to live.
He was wonderful with everything. He said at the onset, this is not going to affect my career pitching because that's what the doctors are telling me, that diabetic people can have normal lives.
But things would be different, and Catfish made it a point to put his teammates at ease.
To see him giving himself his own injections, that was something different you don't normally see.
And he was good-natured about it, you know. Hey, you want to give me my shot? No, I don't want to mess around with it. Yeah, get away from me. Even that wasn't going to deter him from doing what he had to do.
But once the season began, Catfish couldn't hide the fact that he was pitching in constant pain. And for this, there was no medication.
His shoulder was actually shrinking in its ability to manipulate. It's like a ball bearing. It wasn't smooth, and his arm angle wasn't up where it needed to be, and his range of motions were deteriorating.
I was out playing ball with my son at that time, and I was throwing so bad, my wife told me, said, let me pitch to him instead of you. And right then, I knew I had to do something.
And so at the end of June, Catfish sought some radical treatment.
He was really in a tremendous amount of pain, and it wasn't until this sort of bizarre manipulation that he had.
That's when they take your arm, and sometimes over the course of injuries, you have adhesions. And by being asleep, you can't feel the pain that they're going to give you.
The crack is so loud, you know, it sounds like a gunshot has gone off to break up what I guess was the scar tissue that had built up in his shoulder.
Then, just like that, the pain was gone.
He woke up and, how you doing? Okay, I'm all right. And he felt pretty good. He drove right to the ballpark early in the afternoon and took off his shirt. And as he was taking his shirt off, hey, this doesn't feel too bad. His shirt came off pretty good. You know, and he called me over there. He goes, look at this. I put my shirt on, put my shirt off. It's not too bad. Let's go check it out.
It was like a eureka kind of moment.
He was like a young child out there. Look, I can throw.
Oh my God, I have my arm back again.
A miraculous shoulder manipulation that brought Catfish Hunter back. All the way back to the form that had made him one of baseball's top pitchers. If the Cat could come back within 2 months of near retirement, why not the Yankees?
Indeed, New York was 11 games back when Hunter rejoined the team. But with a 10-3 mark down the stretch and 6 straight victories, he helped the Yankees engineer one of the game's greatest comebacks.
We got the team to do it with. The only thing, we got to put everything together. We got to keep the ball players pulling for each other. Got to keep them from fighting. And when you get out there on the field and you play for one another instead of by yourself and try to just play for yourself, that's when you become winners.
Catfish was a little bit more of a father figure at that point. Guidry had a tremendous year. I think Ron would be one of the first guys to tell you how much Cat played in his development.
I had a great year. I kept everything basically together. But he was probably the reason why we actually won, not me. It was because of him.
After beating Boston in a one-game playoff, the Yankees faced the Kansas City Royals in the ALCS, and Hunter would start Game 3.
Warming up in the bullpen, number 29, Jim Catfish Hunter.
There was never a doubt as Hunter won Game 3 and helped lead the Yankees to the pennant. Next step, Los Angeles, as New York looked to win its second straight championship, and Catfish continued to inspire.
In Game 6, he came in and he said, look, score me some runs and we're going to go home tonight.
Hunter had lost Game 2, and he began Game 6 a bit shaky.
Deep to left field, point bounce, right. There it is. It is a 1-0 ball game.
Davey Lopes leads off, bottom of the first, home run, boom, comes back in. Catfish ain't got nothing. End of the game, we got 1 run as the Dodgers. He didn't have anything, but he pitched about 7 or 8 innings of Catfish Hunter baseball.
He wasn't overpowering. We knew that he had great control. He could throw all his pitches over the plate at any time.
Looked like you should have just knocked him all over the ballpark. He didn't have overpowering fastball. He didn't have that wicked slider. He just got you out.
He was a great competitor, and it was a great honor to face a guy like that in the World Series.
Catfish pitched 7 solid innings for the win and his 5th World Series ring. Looking back, it would have made a nice ending.
That should have been my last year, I always said, instead of 79, because I won the last game of the World Series against the Dodgers, and I could have said, for the last game I pitched, I won.
Welcome back to Yankeeography. Catfish Hunter's amazing recovery in 1978 helped the Yankees to their 2nd straight title. But come 79, the magic was gone.
You could see a slight decrease in sharpness. In certain days, it was very obvious where he was really having trouble getting the shoulder ready each time. We would start skipping starts. He would be the swing man. If there was a rain out or a day off, we'd throw him around the rotation to protect him.
In spite of his diminishing skills, Catfish did his best to contribute.
Even when he didn't pitch every 5th day, he was there supporting his teammates.
Catfish Hunter showed that winning is more than the numbers. You can bring a mental focus to a team that gets everybody thinking at a different level, at a higher level.
But even maintaining focus was becoming difficult. Catfish made just 19 starts in 79 and had a dismal 2-9 record. Even worse, he lost his mentor, Clyde Klutz, in June. And by the end of July, his father, Abbott Hunter, passed away. Sadness was occupying every part of his life.
He was real close with Clyde Klutz and is extremely close with his father. And not being able to be here with his dad so much before he passed away, I think it really bothered him.
To help him cope with these painful losses, Catfish got support from his teammates. But he would soon come face to face with still another tragic loss, one that he never saw coming.
The world of baseball is in mourning tonight for one of its finest stars. Thurman Munson, the 32-year-old captain of the New York Yankees, is dead.
Sobered by 3 major losses in his life and physically drained from the grind, Catfish, now 33, chose to honor the promise he made to Helen when he first signed with the Yankees, to hang up his uniform at the end of the contract.
He was ready to retire. He was ready to go home and just be with his kids.
To me, it's one of the extraordinary promises in baseball history that gets lived up to, that he would return to his family, return to Hertford, return to the land.
After informing the Yankees of his decision, the gears were set in motion to pay tribute to this future Hall of Famer who had meant so much to the team.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, that sentimental gentleman from Hertford, North Carolina, Catfish Hunter.
I was there at the top step when Catfish had his debut. you know, you just feel good. You just feel good about stuff like that because you know that he deserves it. You know that this is a time for the people to really show their love for him.
I think he felt a little bit modest in a way, but he wasn't much of people making a whole lot of him. He didn't mind it, but he'd have rather been sitting in the dugout looking on.
I could not believe all the stuff that the Yankees were giving him. They just kept wheeling things out. They gave him a vehicle to shotguns to everything else you can imagine in between. And then to cap it all off, they walked an elephant in. They had him lay down or something right at home plate. And the only thing that I can remember is the rest of the game, all I could smell was that elephant for 9 innings. So, you know, I just thought that was totally bizarre.
Following an elephant is never easy, but Catfish summoned the strength to win over the crowd.
Mr. Steinbrenner, I'd like to thank you for having my family come up here, making it possible. And thank you for all the gifts and all the great times that I've had here in Yankee Stadium. Thank you for your money, too. There's three people that I wish could have been here today. Scout that signed me, Clyde Clutch, my dad, and Thurman Munson.
In the zoo that was the Bronx, it was a fitting close to a wondrous career.
That's a rare athlete these days that can go out the way that Jim did on his own terms. Catfish became a loving but distant memory, and Jimmy Hunter came back to life in Hertford, North Carolina.
And thank God for giving me strength and letting me be a ball player. What I always wanted to be. Thank you very much.
After 15 years in the major leagues and having played on both the East and West Coasts, Catfish Hunter knew when it was time to head south, back to Hertford, North Carolina, back to where it all began.
Having him home after all those years being on the road, to have him come home and coach you and be home every day and be around, that was something special.
He was living a nice life. It was hunting and fishing and, you know, being a full-time farmer.
You know that old saying about you can't take the country out of the boy? Well, that's him. That's a proverbial Catfish right there.
I love to be a farmer. I love to see things grow. I like to be out there working in the wide open spaces.
But Catfish still had one more harvest to reap, one more baseball journey to make to the Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, to be honored as one of the very best to play the game.
Please welcome in the Baseball Hall of Fame, Jim Catfish Hunter. When you say Jim Hunter now, nobody really recognizes that name. When you say Catfish, everybody remembers it. Thank you, Mr. Finley, for the nickname. Mr. Finley gave me the opportunity to start playing in the big leagues. Mr. Steinbrenner gave me enough money to retire after 5 years. Thank you, Mr. Steinbrenner. Thank you for coming today.
You might think enshrinement with the legends would have brought closure to Hunter's baseball career, but then along came those old-timers games.
Let's have a real Yankee Stadium welcome for that gentleman farmer from North Carolina, Hall of Famer, Jim Catfish Hunter.
And it's no surprise that Catfish was as competitive as ever.
Oh, you got some on it, man. Hey, look at it. You've been practicing, Cat.
For that day or those 2 days, he was Catfish Hunter again. I mean, he loved being in that atmosphere, and he picked up on it, you know, like he had never missed it.
On the other coast, the Oakland A's also bestowed an honor on the man who led them to 3 straight titles.
That number, 27, will never ever be worn by another member of the Oakland Athletics.
His baseball odyssey complete, Catfish returned to the farm to spend time with his daughter and sons. Then, fate took another cruel twist.
I was rabbit hunting, and I noticed I couldn't load my shotgun with my right hand.
They sort of laughed it off, figured it was old age, arthritis.
And then it got to be stiffer. You know, he couldn't really flex his fingers like he thought he should.
He went to several doctors trying to find out exactly what the problem was.
Eventually, we went to Johns Hopkins, and they told us there that it definitely was ALS.
The very same disease that struck down the Iron Horse Lou Gehrig in his prime has no known cure. And even the strongest eventually lose the fight.
ALS is a disease that attacks nerve cells in the brain and spinal cord. So when the disease progresses, a patient loses the ability to move, to speak, to swallow, and eventually to breathe.
But Catfish refused to give in and vowed to do whatever it would take to help find a cure.
Winning isn't everything, but wanting to is. If you want to do something bad enough, you're going to work for it. And that's what I'm going to do. Thank you.
He knew that it was incumbent upon him to help people become aware and to find a cure.
He knew that probably the cure would never be found in his lifetime, but he didn't want other people and other people's children to have to go through what he went through.
But then the man, whose wind-up once put fear in hitters' eyes, incredibly lost the use of both his arms.
When you can't use your hands and arms, you can't comb your hair, you can't brush your teeth. I mean, you can't even get dressed.
It was sad to see the way a proud man, as proud as he was, suffer through something like that.
I try to take one day at a time, and you go from there. And you know the good Lord's with you.
On August 8th, 1999, as he walked up the steps of his home, Jimmy Hunter's world came crashing down.
When we came up, he was flat on the cement, so he could not catch himself.
We figured that he would whip the ALS if anybody could, and when he fell, we figured he would get up and go again, and it just wasn't in the cards.
Just 3 weeks later, Catfish lost his final battle.
I remember how sad it was to lose a good friend like that.
I'm not ashamed to say I cried for a good while. Not only did I lose a good friend, I felt like I lost a part of me.
Apparently, so did many others, as friends, family, and teammates from two coasts converged on tiny Hertford to pay their respects.
That cat in the hearse, and we went right through this town that they lived in, and everybody came out of their house. They were waving cat goodbye.
Who would have thought a simple farm boy from North Carolina could have touched the lives of so many?
And I get a chance to tell my grandkids one day to listen, man, I played with the great Catfish Hunter.
He had a passion for baseball and for pitching, and it's just a shame that he left us so quick.
I just wish that everybody else could have had a friend like we had, Jimmy.
Jimmy Hunter, the man, was maybe 1% more special than Catfish Hunter, the baseball player. I don't think anybody would have been too sad to have had either one of those lives. Jimmy was fortunate enough to have them both.
Pitcher, teammate, champion, father, friend, husband. Catfish wore so many hats and wore them well. It's no wonder why he's still so revered today. Fittingly, the Hunter family remains very much involved in the fight against ALS. They continue to raise money for the foundation in hopes of one day finding a cure. They do so because they know Catfish wouldn't have it any other way. For the Yes Network, I'm John Sterling. Thanks for watching Yankeeography.